Hey, Chris, I've been getting a lot of questions lately from homeowners, usually older parents that ask me if they should give away their house to their kids now while they're alive. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
I hear it all the time.
I think you had an example, didn't you, recently, of
Yeah.
somebody that asked for one of the kids asked the parent to give him the house, or was it half the house?
Yeah, no, the entire house. So, I forget all the stipulations. It's actually in Fresno, here in California. And basically, mom and dad transfer title to their son. I don't have any, more details than that. And then come to find out, the son evicts his parents. And so this actually made the news. And obviously, parents are like, WTF? And this is my house. And maybe they transfer title for a certain reason, what might be, but they're now evicted and it's legal. So given the circumstances, it was just kind of wild. So
Sad. I hope they have other assets that they can disinherit their son from for doing such a terrible thing. But probably not. In most families, the big asset is the house. And yeah, I've seen that a number of times in my career, maybe too many times. Sometimes the kids want to charge the parents rent, and if they don't pay rent in their own house that they already bought, then they get evicted. So there are other problems too. So basically, if one of your kids asks you if you want to give them your house right now, usually the answer should be no. Because like Chris said, you'll lose control. Then the son or daughter that you gave it to can evict you. Or they could add their wife or husband or girlfriend on. And or the property taxes can also be reassessed immediately. So while you're alive, you convey the property to a kid, and then property taxes go up. And even more bad things happen. Another bad thing that happens is the cost basis will now stay low. Usually when somebody dies and leaves a house to a child at death, the capital gains cost basis steps up to fair market value as appraised on the date of death. But if you give the house to a child now, then you're no longer the owner. You lose the step up. When you die, there's no step up in cost basis. And that means that if the child ever sells the house, they have to pay a huge capital gains tax if there's a lot of appreciation.
yeah. So for example, if you bought the house for $100,000, it's worth let's just say $1 million to keep it simple. They're going to lose that whole spread now. If the house is worth $1 million, they're pretty much at game to get reassessed and pay taxes.
Yeah, well, property taxes will go up. The assessor is going to drive. Somebody's going to drive out there. They're going to look at the house. They're going to reassess it. But the $900,000 of appreciation is going to be subject to federal and state if you live in a taxable state, a state with income tax. But the federal capital gains tax will be due on the $900,000 of profit if the son or the recipient child sells the house after the parent dies. Whereas if they just left it to the kid through a living trust, then there's no probate, and the very low capital gains cost basis steps up the fair market value on the date of death to $1 million. If it's worth $1 million on the date of death, they can sell it for $1 million. They can deduct the fair market value on the death, which is $1 million. So $1 million minus $1 million is zero capital gain. But you can only do that if you own your own home when you die. If you give it to your kids before death for any reason, then they're the ones that really get screwed. They're the ones that have to pay the capital gains tax.
That makes sense.
So children don't understand this. They want the house now because for a lot of reasons. They're fearful the parent's going to sell and move to Chattanooga or somewhere. And the kid's never going to see the money. Or they're afraid the parent's maybe going to give it to another child. Or they're afraid the parent's going to take out a huge mortgage and pull out the cash to live on. And the child wants to selfishly protect his or her own inheritance. So the kids have all kinds of motivations to ask a parent to transfer the property now. But in the end, the child is the one that gets hurt because they lose that step up in cost basis. They have to pay higher property taxes. And so you really have to have a very good reason to give away your own home to your child. And going back to your example, when you do that, you're really at the mercy of your child once you do it. So you better, think twice or 20 times and get some good legal counsel. If you don't know what to do, maybe there's a creditor issue. That's a whole nother thing. If a parent thinks they're going to be sued for $1 bazillion, then as long as they haven't formally been sued and received notification of the lawsuit, because you don't want to violate the Fraudulent Conveyance Act, that's another problem. If you're sued, you can't give it away to a child and think you're going to avoid the creditor. You have to do that before the lawsuit starts, before you have notice. But anyway, you have to be very careful. Generally speaking, it's not a good idea to give away your house to your children during your own lifetime.
And Dan, it sounds like it's a good idea not if the parents are insistent on it and I'm going to receive it. Hey, I don't want it because I don't want the tax hit.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Your parent maybe they don't understand and they're like, Johnny, I want to give you my house right now so it doesn't go through probate when I die.
Right.
But the parent doesn't understand that property taxes are going to go up immediately, and Johnny's going to lose the step up in cost basis. Now, sometimes there are situations where we do want to give away a house early, and we're okay with the property tax. Maybe they just bought the house last year. Property taxes are already high.
Makes sense.
And they just want to give it to the kid, to a child, so that the future growth will occur outside of their estate. So there are advanced estate tax reasons why sometimes it might be a good idea to consider gifting one's primary residence to one's children now to get it out of your estate. And there are ways to do that, and not just necessarily a simple grant deed. It might be what they call a QPRT, which is a qualified personal residence trust, which allows you to gift away your house today at a discounted rate to a child, and it pulls out all the future appreciation from your estate, and the future growth occurs in the estate of the child. But that's advanced estate planning. Most people just really need to be careful if you're considering giving your own home to somebody else, even a child.